All right, hello and welcome to TPS Fest. We're going to be presenting on the Law Library of Congress and our collections today. Before we get started, there's a few reminders for participants in the TPS Fest. We're going to have closed captioning enabled. There will also be a note-taking document that's going to be linked in the chat. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat. My colleague Barbara Bavis will be monitoring as we go, and I'll take any questions, time permitting, at the end of the session. We also ask that you adhere to the code of conduct for TPS Fest as you participate in our program. All right, let's get started. Thank you, and hello everyone. My name is Sarah Friedman, and I am a legal reference librarian in the Public Services Division at the Law Library of Congress. I'm going to speak to you today primarily about the Law Library's online collections and how they may be useful in your classroom. First, a little bit of background about the Law Library of Congress. The Law Library is almost 200 years old. It was originally created by law to serve the legal reference needs of all branches of the federal government. We continue to serve the federal government, but we also answer reference inquiries from state and local governments, foreign governments, and members of the public both in the United States and across the world. We have the largest legal collection in the world, totaling almost 3 million print volumes. Some of these include primary sources of foreign law covering 267 jurisdictions. Those jurisdictions include historical, current, and possible future nations, as well as international and regional multinational organizations. We also have rare books and rare materials, Supreme Court records and briefs, and an extensive microform collection of over 3 million items. Although we have millions of volumes, the Law Library of Congress holds about 30,000 volumes of commonly used legal resources in the Law Library Reading Room, located in the Madison Building in Washington, D.C. All our other materials are in closed stacks that are accessible only to library staff by patron request. The reading room is staffed by professional librarians in the Public Services Division, or PSD, and we're subject matter experts in American law and legislative research. If you're in the Washington, D.C. area and interested in doing legal research, you're welcome to visit the reading room in person. Alternatively, you can also send in reference inquiries online through Ask a Librarian. We'll show you how to navigate to Ask a Librarian later. The Law Library's staff also includes foreign law experts. Their work primarily includes offering reference assistance on non-U.S. law matters, helping with collection development of foreign legal materials, drafting comparative law reports and testifying before Congress, and writing for a publication called the Global Legal Monitor, which we'll discuss in a moment. So far, I've discussed the more public-facing law library staff, but an integral part of the law library is the Global Legal Collection Directorate. Although staff in the Public Services Division and foreign comparative legal specialists are the most visible library employees, staff in the GLCD make up approximately half of all law library employees, and their contribution to the library can't be understated. On-site at the DC campus, the law library's collections take up multiple football fields worth of space with millions of volumes. It's important that these materials are well maintained and accessible, which is the responsibility of Stack Services. We also have rare materials at the law library, including both U.S. and foreign materials that are centuries old. Their preservation falls under the responsibility of this directorate. Finally, the Digital Resources Division is tasked with promoting the access and use of online legal materials. Basically, anything that you see on law.gov was put there by DRD staff. They also have a lot of ongoing digitization projects that we'll discuss later in the presentation. Now that I've provided you with some background about the Law Library's history and the people who staff it, I'd like to walk through navigating some of the library's online resources. I'm going to start with the Library of Congress catalog, and we'll work our way to the Law Library's website, law.gov, and searching specific collections on law.gov, and a little bit on the website congress.gov. The library's catalog is accessible at catalog.loc.gov, as it says at the top of the slide here. It's a great starting point if you're looking for specific resources or you just want to see what's available. You'll notice on the main page of the catalog an option to do a quick search. This will search the entire library catalog, which includes about 162 million items. As you can imagine, doing a simple search can lead to an overwhelming amount of results. If you're looking to do more specific research, we recommend a few techniques for focusing your search. The first thing you can do to narrow your search is selecting the advanced search option. With advanced searching, you can do a keyword search or search specific parts of a catalog record, like the author's name, the title, publisher, and so on. Next, if you look down the page, you'll normally see options for search limiters. If you want to find holdings in the law library, you can select all the law library reading room and reference law library reading room options to narrow your search even further to only materials held within the law library, and not, for example, in another division of the Library of Congress, such as manuscripts or geography and maps. In addition to using the catalog to learn about physical items in the collection, the catalog can be helpful if you want to find online materials that you can access from home. When possible, our catalogers try to use the catalog to link to digitized and freely accessible copies of materials in our collection. If you're in the catalog and look below the initial record, you'll see sometimes a field for links. On the slide, you'll see that the catalog entry for this item, Proceedings of the U.S. Senate, is also available on HathiTrust, which is an online depository where you can find the full text of materials in the public domain or without copyright restrictions. If you click the link in this catalog record, you'll be taken to the document on hathitrust.org. Note that this is found in a field called Links, but right above it, you'll find a permalink. This is an LCCN permalink, which is different. Each catalog entry has a permalink, which is a unique link to the entry in the catalog record. So if you were to select that link, it would present an option to copy the link URL to the clipboard, but it would not take you to a digitized version of the catalog item. Also, only certain types of items are normally linked out from the catalog. These are generally items not subject to copyright restrictions, older materials, and government publications. So if you're looking for primary sources related to civics, you might have some luck finding those documents online through the catalog. I've listed some examples of e-resources that you may find links to when exploring the catalog on the screen here. Here's a screen capture of the Law Library of Congress homepage, law.gov. We have a ton of information on this page, but I'll highlight a few resources that may be helpful to you. At the top of the screen, you'll see our main navigation menus about the Law Library, collections, researcher resources, news and events, and legal reports. A little further down the page on the left-hand side is a link to Ask a Librarian. This is where you can submit online reference questions. In the center of the page, you'll see information about the Law Library's blog in Custodia Legis. I want to first focus on the section of the website that I think might be most helpful for those of you who might be just beginning your research, and that's the Researcher Resources section. So I've selected the Researcher Resources link at the top of the homepage, and it's opened up several menu options on the left-hand side of the screen. Today, I want to focus on a few of these resources in turn: Research Guides, the Guide to Law Online, the Legal Research Institute, in Custodia Legis, Law Library Databases, and Story Maps. The Law Library currently has over 300 guides on different topics, and we're creating new guides all the time. These are curated and organized collections of resources on a given topic, also called subject guides or LibGuides. As a reference librarian, I use research guides every day to help answer patrons' questions. Some research guides that may be useful for students include Federal Statutes, a Beginner's Guide, Framing of the United States Constitution, a Beginner's Guide, and Locating a State Constitution, a Beginner's Guide. A few of our most popular guides are listed on the slide. It's a big time saver when researching a new topic because helpful resources are consolidated and you don't have to spend time going through 100 different resources. Here's a screen capture of the front page for our research guides collection, and the URL is in the upper left-hand side of the slide. All Library of Congress research guides are available at guides.loc.gov. You can then use collapsible menus to find guides on a specific topic or created by a particular reading room. As with our digitized collections, you can search the Law Library research guides in multiple ways. You could browse our alphabetical list of over 300 guides, or browse by subject list or topic, for example, historic American law or foreign law. And finally, you can do a keyword search that's limited to the Law Library's collection of guides. Here's the front page for the Guide to Law Online. This is a portal with over 9,000 links to legal resources. I think of it as a bibliography of legal resources organized by jurisdiction or region. We've broken it down into nations of the world and US states and territories, with one research guide for each. Although the Library of Congress is part of the federal government, it doesn't only have federal law. As you can see, the guide includes collections of links for foreign and state law resources, which can be useful for students researching the history of states or countries. This is a sample page for the Guide to Law Online for Maryland state resources. Generally, state governments are organized like the federal government with executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Along with information from different government branches, the Guide to Law Online also lists legal guides that have been made by law school libraries and other legal institutions that cover doing legal research in a specific jurisdiction or on a particular topic. Each of these categories of information is found in the table of contents of the guide on the left side of the screen. This is a great resource if your students are researching state history, as you can find a lot of state government websites linked here all in one place. This slide highlights the Legal Research Institute. From this website, you can keep an eye out for upcoming webinars on both US and foreign law topics. Some examples of upcoming webinars include an orientation to congress.gov on August 21st, a webinar on Japan's legal framework on earthquake mitigation strategies on August 28th, and an introduction to US federal statutes research on September 4th. Select prior webinar recordings are also available on the Legal Research Institute. Our webinar recordings cover a wide variety of topics, including presentations from constitutional scholars, navigating the US congressional serial set, and environmental law. These webinars are free and open to the public, but we do request that you pre-register online through Zoom. You'll find links to register for specific webinars at the Legal Research Institute. The Law Library also has a blog called In Custodia Legis. The blog covers topics from law library events and collection items to research guides, legal trends, and legal history. This could be a great place for students starting their research, as blog posts often provide a brief overview of a topic with links to lots of supporting sources. If you visit the blog, you can sign up for alerts, and you'll receive an email each time the blog is updated in real time. Now I want to speak about some of the electronic legal resources that you can access through law.gov. Here's a screen capture of the top of the Law Library's databases and webpage. It has links to legal research databases organized by topic, a description of the database contents, and information on whether they're accessible remotely or only accessible on-site in a Library of Congress building. A few of the databases are available only in the Law Library reading room, and the research guide will note that. Here's a screen capture from some of our legislative and statutory resources. This screen capture highlights some of our subscription databases that are accessible only while you're on site at a library building, but our databases page also links to freely available resources, which you can navigate to by selecting the relevant tabs. In addition to resources on US law linked through this page, we also have indigenous legal materials, including American Indian constitutions and treaties, as well as foreign and comparative law resources linked through our site, like the Human Rights Library and the World Legal Information Institute. The final resource on the Researcher Resources page of law.gov that we'll highlight today is our story maps. These are a great interactive resource for teachers that introduce readers to the library's collection through narrative, multimedia, and interactive maps. We currently have a dozen story maps on the Law Library's website on a wide variety of topics, including story maps about documenting World War I, illustrating history, art, and law in the women's suffrage movement, and modern monarchies around the world. Story maps provide an overview of a topic with visuals and links to other Library of Congress resources, so this can be a really engaging and informational resource for students. Now let's move over to the digital collections page, which is home to many of our digitized primary sources. On this page, you'll find a listing of information about digitized materials, the Law Library's rare books collection, and our web archives. Digitized collections include primarily federal legal resources, such as the U.S. Code, which includes federal laws drafted by Congress organized by subject, the U.S. Reports, which is the official publication containing U.S. Supreme Court cases, and treaty resources. Here's a screen capture of the digital collections landing page. Notice the links on the left-hand side. Our digital collections are broken down by U.S. law, foreign comparative and international law, and indigenous law. Our digitized materials include some interesting primary source collections, including things like Lincoln and the Law and Piracy Trials, where you can find several full text documents that the library has digitized on a particular topic, all in one place. So, as I mentioned, the library has digitized collections that are freely available online from any location. These are composed mostly of primary source legal materials. One popular collection is the U.S. Reports, which is the official publication of U.S. Supreme Court opinions, also called cases. I'm using our U.S. Reports collection as an example here, but I want to emphasize that the navigation options available in the U.S. Reports are similar to the browse and search function available for all of our digitized collections, such as the U.S. Code, the Code of Federal Regulations, etc. We've digitized and made fully searchable copies of U.S. Reports available online from 1754 through 2013. You have a few options for navigating these resources. You can either browse the U.S. Reports by volume, authoring, justice, or topic. And because the collection is fully searchable, you could look for cases on a legal term like copyright infringement or Medicaid, and the search should retrieve all cases within our digitized collection that contain your search terms. Our digital collections page is also now home to our collection, A Century of Lawmaking for a New Nation. This is where you can find U.S. congressional documents and debates from 1774 to 1875. This is a great source for historical research into the Continental Congress, the Constitutional Convention, and the early years of the United States Congress. The Law Library is also one of 9 U.S. Supreme Court records and briefs depository libraries in the country. We receive most print copies of materials submitted to the U.S. Supreme Court by lawyers or people representing themselves in court. These materials are referred to as records and briefs and include requests for Supreme Court review, the petition for writ of certiorari, merit briefs, which are dealing with substantive issues of the case, and amicus briefs, which are submitted by non-parties who have an interest in the case's outcome. This collection does not include trial or argument transcripts. And these are frequently requested items, but they're only available on site. As a note, our catalog is currently undergoing some updates, so you may not find this collection available for request through our online catalog, but if you contact us in advance of your visit or come to the reference desk, we're happy to help with retrieving the records and briefs you need. And additionally, if you have other research questions about records and briefs and cannot visit the Library of Congress to use our collection, we encourage you to submit a question through Ask a Librarian, as we may be able to help you find briefs through other online sources. For example, the records and briefs for Brown v. Board of Education can be found on the Digital Library Hathi Trust. We've included a link to our research guide describing our collection in more detail and listing other resources for these materials on the slide here. We also have rare law books and materials. If an item's rare, it will have a rare book designation under the item availability section of the catalog. To keep our rare books secure, researchers must make an appointment with the law library's rare books curator, whose email address is up on the screen. Please note that the Rare Law Books collection is separate from the Library of Congress Rare Book and Special Collections in the Jefferson Building, which holds non-law rare items. If you want to learn more about our rare materials, you can visit the website on this slide. You can also find posts on In Custodia Legis and YouTube videos where librarians talk about some of the interesting items in our rare books collection. You'll find links to these videos and blog posts at the bottom of the rare books page on our website. The Law Library publishes reports and articles on foreign and comparative legal topics. Our legal reports provide a very in-depth analysis and frequently compare a legal topic across different nations, and these are written by foreign-trained lawyers, our foreign legal specialists, supporting the work of Congress. The Global Legal Monitor is an online periodical that's updated Monday through Friday, and it contains short articles addressing legal issues across the world, including the United States. The Global Legal Monitor can be searched by author, topic, nation, keyword, and so forth. Now let's explore both in more detail. This slide shows the landing page for the legal reports section of our website, which is a gateway to both contemporary reports and legacy historical reports written many years ago. On this page, shown on the left, you can go directly to reports organized by topic, region, year of publication, or you can simply browse the more than 4,000 reports that are now available online. The bottom of the landing page includes featured reports, which typically include recently published reports. The Law Library has been writing these legal reports for many decades, going back to at least the 1940s. We know that they're of interest to students of law, history, public policy, international relations, as well as to the general public. So around 5 years ago, we began a project to inventory, digitize, store, and publish many of the reports that were previously unavailable. So far, we've released over 4,000 historical reports, with several dozen released each week. And here's an example of one of our legal reports, Regulation of Hemp. The title is at the top of the page. If you'd like to download the full text PDF of the report, you'd either click the image of the report or select PDF from the drop-down menu right underneath the image and click Go. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can be directed to other reports from the same date by the same author or on the same subjects. When you open the report, you'll also see that these reports contain endnotes with citations, which are helpful if you want to review the sources that are cited in the report. And note that these reports analyze only select countries, not every nation's laws on a topic. And this isn't a judgment on the nations that were not included. It simply reflects the nations that our foreign law experts were asked to compare by the requester. The Global Legal Monitor is also searchable and browsable. You can use the browse links on the left-hand side to browse articles by jurisdiction and author. Additionally, each time an author writes a GLM article, it's indexed with relevant subject terms, which is another way to browse articles. So, if you do a topic search for bankruptcy articles, for example, it should retrieve articles discussing a variety of jurisdictions that have been indexed with the term bankruptcy. As I mentioned, these articles are much shorter than legal reports, and the subject of the article is going to be much more focused. Here's an example of a keyword search for the word agriculture. Notice that you can refine your results by date, topic, jurisdiction, and author by using the options on the left-hand side of the page. And here's an example of a Global Legal Monitor article. As I mentioned, these are much shorter than legal reports, and the subject of the article is going to be much more focused. It's really like a legal newspaper article. It's only a few paragraphs long, rather than 40 pages long, and the topic of regulating hemp that we saw in the earlier example of a legal report is pretty broad, while this article discusses a discrete legal topic, a tariff on agricultural goods in one country, Bolivia. All right, now let's shift over to congress.gov. Congress.gov is the official website for U.S. legislative information. It's a collaborative project involving the Law Library of Congress, the Congressional Research Service, the Office of the House Clerk, the Secretary of the Senate, and the Government Publishing Office. In addition to listing the text of bills from 1993 to present, it also provides bill summaries that are written by analysts in the Congressional Research Service. It links to the Congressional Record, which is the official record of debates and proceedings in the U.S. Congress, committee reports, committee hearings, and profiles of members of the U.S. Congress. You can learn more about coverage information by visiting the website listed at the bottom of the slide. Here are even more resources available by visiting congress.gov. If you're interested in learning more about the available resources, I recommend reviewing the site's Help Center. Congress.gov is a powerful source for U.S. legislative materials, and we don't have time to go into all its details today. If you'd like to learn more, we recommend signing up for an upcoming Congress.gov webinar, which again is on the Legal Research Institute page on our website. One resource that I do want to highlight from the Help Center that I mentioned in the previous slide is our legislative process videos. This series of short videos describes how Congress works and how bills become law. This can be very helpful for students who are starting out learning about how laws are made in the United States. All right, now turning to the front page of congress.gov. If you want to visit the congress.gov Help Center that I mentioned, you could select the link in the upper right-hand corner of the screen that reads Support, and then select Search the Help Center. I've also highlighted some helpful resources that are linked from the front page, including the Constitution Annotated, which we'll look at more closely in a later slide. You'll see that the link to Congressional Research Service reports is also highlighted here, and these publications can be a great resource for students, so let's take a closer look at them. CRS reports are drafted by staff at the Congressional Research Service, which is the nonpartisan research arm of Congress, housed within the Library of Congress. They provide research services for the House and Senate, and over the past few years, more of these reports have been made available for free online on congress.gov. These reports cover every topic imaginable, and reviewing CRS reports is a really great way to get started on researching a new topic, since they're heavily footnoted and updated regularly as new information becomes available. Although many CRS products are longer reports, the In-Focus, Insight, and Legal Sidebar and infographic documents are typically just a few pages long. And you can use the filters to select the type of CRS products you're looking for, as well as to limit your search by topic or date. If you decide to search for legislation on congress.gov, the best thing to do is start by selecting the drop-down menu that reads Current Congress and entering your search terms. If you'd like to narrow your results, you can use limiters on the left side of the screen to search within specific collections, such as legislation, reports, meetings, etc. And if you're looking for legislation or legislative materials from a specific Congress or date range, we recommend selecting the More Options button in the gray bar at the top of the screen to conduct your search. As I mentioned earlier, you'll also find the Constitution Annotated on congress.gov. The Constitution Annotated includes the text of the U.S. Constitution, as well as information about the history of the Constitution and its articles and amendments, and summaries of important U.S. Supreme Court cases that have applied and interpreted the Constitution. Students can find section-by-section interpretation and analysis of the Constitution written by the Congressional Research Service, with links to relevant statutes and case law. This can be a valuable resource for students who are researching the history of the drafting of the Constitution and how the Constitution has been interpreted over time. So here's a quick review with links of some of the law library's resources that we reviewed today. If you'd like a copy of the slides, please feel free to reach out to us via Ask a Librarian, and we're happy to share them with you. And that's all I have for you today. I'd like to encourage you to contact us using the Law Library's Ask a Librarian service for any reference and research questions you may have. And now I'd like to see if we have any questions.